digital entertainment and smart living. Above all, we have also seen a change in terms of the financial institutions moving from technology discovery to the application of technology. And this trend is evident even within our lab. Just with our lab's 41 alumni, they have completed 300 proof of concepts and 200 implementations. So as you can see, the landscape is evolving, and I'm very delighted to be part of this transformation of the financial industry. So I look forward to more success from our 2019 cohort. So thank you. So just to officiate this opening of this special occasion, I would like to invite Mr. Ravi Chhabra to come on stage to give his opening remarks. Ravi is the Finance Services Lead of Accenture Hong Kong, and he's also the executive sponsor of our FinTech Lab. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you, Ellen. So welcome to the 6th FinTech Innovation Lab Asia-Pacific Demo Day. FinTech remains a hot topic in Asia. The recent launch of virtual insurers and the imminent launch of virtual banks in Hong Kong, as well as the upcoming virtual and digital bank launches in Taiwan, Singapore, and Malaysia, underscores the region's appetite for innovation. Also, in Australia, the open banking rules will be fully implemented in early 2020. This lays the groundwork for further cooperation between traditional financial firms, fintech startups, and established technology companies to offer a hyper-personalized customer experience. At Accenture, innovation is at the core of our business strategy. Here in Hong Kong, we are proud to help our clients transform the financial services industry to benefit all customers. For the past 12 weeks, 8 very promising startups have worked with some of the world's most influential financial institutions here at Cyberport. I'd like to thank you all, our financial institution partners, independent mentors, supporting organizations, for participating in this mentorship program. Thank you. I'd also like to say a very special thank you to Cyberport, who've been a strong and committed ally of the lab since it was first established in 2014. We gratefully acknowledge your partnership. I'm often asked why Accenture sponsors the FinTech Innovation Lab. The simple answer is, we run the FinTech Innovation Lab in Asia to connect financial institutions with innovative startups so that together we can transform financial services in Asia. Across Asia, we see a common need for innovation, efficiency, and increased cooperation across industries. Working with the lab each year, we find entrepreneurs studying the financial services industry and thinking, how can I make that work better? This program helps to introduce those solutions to the institutions that are facing challenges. Today, our startups are here to present their ideas to you. I'm sure that the startups are dreaming of closing a deal today. I'm afraid that probably won't happen today, but you might spark conversations. You might make the introduction that proves important later. You might continue a conversation that you started in the lab, which will lead to fundraising further down the road. So with that said, I will not take up any more of your time. Please enjoy the afternoon. Please start the conversations that help us to continue to bring innovation into the heart of financial services in Asia. Thank you, everyone. And Dr. George Lam, thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Lee George Lam, Chairman of Cyberport, to come on stage to share a few words.
Ravi, friends, supporters, congratulations. I mean, this is a big day for FinTech, for Hong Kong, for Accenture, actually for the world. So I also like to congratulate Ravi for the expansion of your family. Yeah. So the staff, the team prepared a long speech for me to acknowledge the support, the friendship, the partnership of Accenture for Cyberport and Hong Kong. You know, a couple of pages, but I have just a couple of minutes, so I will make it short so that we have enough time for the program. But in a nutshell, I really like to congratulate the 8 startups. Now you have had, 12 weeks of all the hard work. I cannot wait to see your perfect solution today. Yeah, I think this is excellent. And the FinLab is really the key to success. It helps all of us gain invaluable experience and all the skills on how to present and pitch solutions. I congratulate you all for having made it through. Now today, we'll see solutions ranging from RegTech, legal tech, artificial intelligence, InsurTech. The list is long. Now, all these are targeting all the pain points, all the big problems in our industry. And I think all the investors here are eager to learn more about your proposed solutions. I like to just spend have a few words about the partnership with Accenture. Once again, Hong Kong and Cyberport, I thank Accenture for having Cyberport as its partner for this program since 2014. And Cyberport understands the important role played by Accenture, because after these years, Cyberport has become the FinTech cluster for Hong Kong. In fact, the Hong Kong government designated Cyberport as the FinTech hub. But credit should go to Accenture as well, not just the Cyberport team. So Accenture is like our first girlfriend and maybe wife, yeah? in building up the FinTech family. A lot of babies have been born and now growing up fast, including TNG, which has become a unicorn, and more to come. With Accenture, we have made available a lot of support services for our entrepreneurs, including workshops, panel discussions, meetings, networking opportunities, mentorship program from leading FinTech experts and executives, as well as a lot of these investors. So this is a good entrepreneurial training camp as well. Now, Hong Kong's FinTech scene is also very vibrant and exciting. We already have over 3,000 startups altogether, so Hong Kong is moving decisively into the innovation and technology direction. Today, you have heard a lot of speeches, so I don't want to talk too much about the statistics and some of the facts. But to cut a long story short, Hong Kong now is also a VC hub, basically risk capital and smart money hub for the Greater Bay Area. Greater Bay Area is destined to become, and more, because we have in Guangdong and so on. So Cyberport is definitely very proud and very pleased to continue our partnership in FinTech with Accenture. we always say, when the government of Hong Kong goes out to the world, we always say, think Asia, think Hong Kong, think FinTech, think Cyberport. So now I have to add, we also have to think Accenture. Yeah. So on that note, if I carry on, I have 4 more pages. So I want to stop here by thanking Accenture again and thanking all the other stakeholders and supporters to help FinTech entrepreneurs from Hong Kong and around the world coming to Hong Kong, coming to Cyberport to build the next unicorns, the next dream teams and projects, making the world better. All the best.
Thank you, Dr. Lam. If I may ask you to please stay on stage while we invite Mr. Peter Yan, CEO of Cyberport, and Ravi to come on stage for a photo. To mark this special occasion, we are honored to have Dr. Lam, Mr. Yan, and Ravi open the proceeding for today. Gentlemen, please. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Once again, I would like to thank Ravi, Dr. Lam for their opening remarks and taking the time to be with us today. I would also like to provide a special thanks to Mr. Yan and the Cyberport team for the hard work and commitment they have provided to make our program a success. Now, to kickstart this afternoon's program, I would like to welcome our next honored guest, Mr. John Briscoe, CEO of Coherent Capital Advisors, to the stage to share his insights on the collaboration between incumbents and fintechs. Mr. Briscoe himself used to work in an incumbent, so it will be interesting to hear his perspective. Welcome, Mr. Briscoe.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for basically listening to me for the next 15 minutes, trying to help everyone understand some of the experiences I've had in corporates, as well as now in startup land, and how institutions and startups can work much better and much more in collaboration. It's a very hotly debated topic, and some of the lessons I'm going to share are more from personal experiences rather than any sort of articles. And you can feel free at any point to disagree with these, but ultimately it's to try and create a more connected and collaborative institutional as well as startup experience. So it's aptly titled Crossing the Chasm, trying to figure out how the startups and institutions can come closer together. My company, and I'm not here to pitch my company, Coherent, which is an alumni of Cyberport, we work with nearly 30 different insurers and banks. So we have some experiences about the pain points, the highs, as well as some of the challenges around this. And I'll try and provide some of those personal experiences. But before I get started, and I think it was slightly missed, but I wanted to thank Ravi for inviting me to speak and for Ravi to actually be here because he just had a daughter 2 odd days ago. So congratulations, Ravi, and all the best from Coherent. So a little bit about confession time. It's always really kind of easy to come up on stage and say, I'm going to tell you X or Y or Z. The simple fact is that at an institution level, when working with startups, it's really, really hard. And similarly, from startups to work with institutions, it's really, really hard. And I think that sometimes it's completely underestimated about the chance and the benefits associated with working in tandem. So what I'm trying to do today is not favor one side, but instead help give a more balanced viewpoints about what I think are the key lessons, key insights, which both parties can understand in order to really improve that whole collaboration. And if we can do that, I think you'll see much more fintechs be successful in Hong Kong and beyond. I did want to put up some stats to begin with, and we've done extensive research here, and it's called advanced Googling, but ultimately what we're trying to showcase is, very interestingly, on the right-hand side, essentially these are seen as the key challenges fintechs have when engaging with institutions. So the biggest gripe tends to be lack of agility of the institution. Then there's cultural fit and willingness of partnering, but there commonly is a lot of press and literature around that it's really hard for startups to work with big institutions. But on the other side, 66% of fintechs and startups realize it's absolutely essential to their business to work with institutions, to have that visibility, to have that kind of kudos that you're working with the biggest institutions in the world. So there's a win-win that needs to be had, and how do you actually try and create that win-win? And rather than focusing to begin with on the institution pain points, I think it's quite useful to help the fintechs understand what the institutions are looking for. So when I was sitting in Manulife as a senior exec, or QBE when I was previously, one of the biggest challenges we had when engaging with digital startups, fintechs, etc., we just didn't think they understood the business in deep detail, which then created this kind of gap in communication and gap of really understanding the reality of what the big institutions. So I wanted to share some of them more in detail, and some people are nodding their heads up here already, but I thought I'd give you some more context. First and foremost, for the fintechs here, you've got to realize every financial institution is driven by analysts, and the expectations of how a company needs to report quarter by quarter and performance getting better. They know that in an ideal world, they could redraw their technology infrastructure. They could redraw the whole customer experience. But no analyst is going to give them any kudos for doing that. That's the brutal reality. So it has to be in increments. It's not going to be an overnight transformation. Institutions need to do this stage by stage. And then also, very importantly for fintechs to understand, is that box called fiduciary duty. There's a reason why they ask you to fill 250 questions on security. There's a reason why it's MSAs, legal agreements to get into the organization, because one mistake of these organizations could cost them billions of dollars in compliance. So it's often misunderstood by fintechs. That's the reality of the external factors facing institutions. And then from an internal factor point of view, people just don't realize how big institutions are. It's very rare that one person can make an end-to-end decision. Stakeholder navigation, committees, etc., are all put in place to ensure that the system works. And it's very intimidating for a fintech to understand and how to navigate that internal ecosystem. Generally speaking, at a coherent level, if we're doing a sale over $500,000, we've probably had to engage 35 to 40 people in an institution to make sure they're all aligned to what ultimately the company's trying to do and what we're trying to do. So that whole sales cycle, engagement cycle, is much more complex than people anticipate. And quite frankly, a lot of fintechs lose patience. They get frustrated, it takes time, they want to get on with things. But the big institutions have got this process and you have to work to it. And that process is also really key to building trust. They're not going to give the biggest problems to fix overnight. They're going to ask you to prove, step by step, increment by increment, how you're adding value to the organization. So one executive, he might be in here or not, basically said to me, when I was kickstarting Coherent, pilots are for effing planes. They don't really care until you've had tangible, actual business outcomes. But you'll start with the pilots, but it's the start of the game. The game is about adding genuine business advantage to the institution. So you have to set those expectations from the start in tandem with the institution. So not rocket science here, but actually surprisingly, quite a lot of fintechs sometimes struggle to understand these characteristics and get frustrated, don't really understand why things aren't moving fast. This is the reality. So how do you cross that chasm? What's the things you can do to make this process better? So some tips on the right: avoid using the word disruption to institutions. I've not met one exec who likes the word disruption. And a lot of fintechs go in and say, we're disruptive to X, disruptive to Y. They'll listen to you and then just wave you out the door. So as a fintech, try and avoid using the word disruption. The other big thing is not everyone cares about the latest and greatest tech. AI, blockchain, machine learning, the different terms of machine learning. The reality is most institutions have some form of 30-year-old system in the business. They're more figuring out, how can you help me solve my legacy and make me more customer-centric as well as sales kind of driven? So don't think that they're really that interested, because ultimately, going back to point one, it's a quarter-by-quarter driven business. There'll be some people who are really interested, but not everyone. Everyone can read and they'll tell you if they're interested, but ultimately they're driven by other metrics. And I think really importantly for fintechs, there's some amazing people in institutions. The challenge they have is usually they've got hundreds and hundreds of projects to do every year. So don't underestimate the capability of the institution's teams, because they're really smart. It's just that they've got lots of priorities. And it's really, if you can figure that out, then the focus on the left-hand side is how I break down the problem, right? So really focusing on the problem, showing patience, and then working in tandem with the institution. And then that's how you build a strategic relationship. So again, not really preaching things that people don't know. It's just actually understanding the dynamics of it altogether. But let's not just kick the fintechs. From an institution point of view, what do institutions need to do better? And I think I kind of cut this story into two ways. One is, on my right-hand side, really focusing basically a fintech on either problems worth solving or opportunities worth exploring. So problems worth solving, there has to be something which can be measured and actually is of business value. That you, when you're doing a proof of concept or when you're doing an initiative, people can see an outcome. Because if you're getting involved in something where there's no outcome and you're asking a fintech to do it, destined to be a failure. And then in terms of if it's a new opportunity to worth exploring, if the fintech's getting asked to be the accelerator, don't ask them to fix all the pain points of the legacy in order to accelerate, because they're not geared up to do that. So it's framing why you're bringing in the fintech to help your business opportunity or business problem. And then on the left-hand side, it's much more about how it works and together to deliver. So I admit, when I was at Manulife, worked with some cool fintechs, put them in a black room and said, go figure stuff out. Guess what? Nothing really was achieved what we wanted to achieve. So too often, the fintech might be put on aside, not working in tandem with the main kind of teams, and there's a kind of them and us mentality. Get them integrated into your overall teams, you'll see better results. That's basically a guarantee that if everyone's working together, you're going to achieve better results. And then importantly, educate them on the things I was talking about, how hard it is to go through internal processes, why you're doing security, why you're doing certain infrastructure requests, etc. But also learn from the fintechs, because they're doing some really amazing stuff, which might just help you have competitive advantage. I've seen quite a few examples where the business, the institution who's actually working with the fintech hasn't really asked that many questions out with the scope of work, what the fintech's working on. and then gets really surprised when the fintech goes and works with another client, which is something really awesome which that institution wanted to do. So exploring that connection is really important. So I'm not here to, obviously, as I said, kick either side, but it's about a give and take. So it's no single path. It's essentially navigating across a number of core dimensions, which I think helps fintechs be more successful with institutions, and then institutions being able to adapt to fintechs much better. Trust me, I've got the scars from both sides, some good, some not so good, but ultimately I think fintechs are going to be more and more into the ecosystem with institutions. But if you're investing in that relationship as an institution, you want to see the value. And from a fintech where you're really focusing on the burn of your cost and capital, you want to make sure that relationship's worth pursuing. So that's all I wanted to kind of give the context with today. To all the fintechs, best of luck in the future. Anyone in InsurTech, hope you're not too successful. Just joking. But ultimately, thank you for the opportunity, Accenture and Cyberport, to present, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Briscoe, for sharing your insights on how fintechs can work with the incumbents. Now that we've heard about how the fintech ecosystem is from our honored guests, let's hear it from the startups. We have 8 startups in our 2019 cohort this year, and 5 of them will be presenting to you today. For the rest of them, you will be able to learn about their company and propositions from the booths that we will have during the networking session. So feel free to chat with them then. To kick it off, I would like to invite Raphael to the stage to introduce Datarama. Datarama is a Singapore-based RegTech platform, and Datarama has also been one of the startups who has been working with the incumbents, so I'm excited to hear his experience. Welcome, Raphael.
Thanks, Celine. Hello. Thanks, Celine. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here and your attention. My name is Raphael, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Datarama. Datarama stands for Data, Rating, Mapping. And essentially, we do 2 things, 2 basic things for our clients, but very important things. We help them understand risk and discover opportunities. We currently have more than 50 clients, and as Eileen mentioned, 4 of those clients are part of the financial institution that are supporting this program. And I see some familiar faces in the audience today, so good to see you here. And really, concretely, what we do with financial institutions is to help them find the answers that they need from the data they can't find. And we are especially good at doing that in the context of emerging market and private companies, because this is the most difficult area for financial institutions to operate. We have 3 lines of services. A due diligence platform, which is used by compliance and risk department to identify their most risky stakeholder and allocate their resources very rationally. We have a risk-based protocol which essentially allows financial institutions to do a large volume of KYC check using our reputation index that you can see behind me just right now, to really identify those companies that are the most risky for them and allocate more resources to investigate them further. So the more risky you are, the more attention you're going to receive from your compliance department of our clients. Secondly, we have a deal sourcing tool. So this one is used by M&A advisors, distressed debt teams, special situation teams, trading companies, MNCs, and they really use it to identify investment targets that fit their criteria. Obviously, this is based on technology and big data, so it's a very efficient way of approaching the issue, and it saves them tremendous time of research internally. And based on their feedback, they find companies that they would have never found if they have done the research manually. So it's a tool that is extremely useful to them to save time and save money and be more efficient at identifying new potential investment or joint venture partners. Finally, we launched a new product recently called the Wealth Finder, and this is designed for private bankers and wealth managers. Very simply put, it does three things. It gives private bankers access to new clients. It connects the private banker with this new potential client via their existing network. And it facilitates the onboarding process to make it a lot faster than it is currently. We have a database of about 30,000 high net worth individuals in Asia-Pacific. And where it becomes interesting is that a lot of these high net worth individuals are not yet known by the global private banks. And that's because they derive their wealth from private company ownership. So these guys are not easy to find and are not known yet by your global private bank in Asia. So that's where we really add value. So some of you might think now that, well, some consulting firm offer similar services, and I can't disagree with you because I used to work for one of them. But their services are slow and they're expensive. And perhaps most importantly, consulting firms are really over-reliant on their people. So when people leave, the knowledge leaves with them. When I started Datarama, my primary goal was really to build a company that was knowledge-based and not necessarily people-based. So the only way to do this is use technology to make the consulting model faster, cheaper, and most importantly, a lot more scalable. And that's what we're in the process of achieving with Datarama. I hope so. At the heart of it, besides technology, there is data. It's obviously critical to the whole project. So we use very large amount of data, structure and unstructured, but not any type of data. We use data. And I really do insist on this word meaningful, because quite regularly I'm asked what is the difference between Datarama and LinkedIn, for instance. So obviously there are plenty of differences, starting with the size of the company, unfortunately. But for me, really where the main difference lies is in the quality of the data. Everything we use at Datarama, every piece of information has been highly curated and verified. So there is no self-populated information on Datarama. And that really makes the analytics that we can provide infinitely more reliable than what you could find on platforms which contain self-populated data. So that's really a key element on which I like to insist. Technology-wise, we build our own web scraper to extract unstructured data from, again, a curated list of sources. And we do that in multiple languages to establish connection between individuals, companies, families, government, etc., etc., etc. So I hope that, in a nutshell, that gives you a decent idea of what Datarama is about. And I've been asked to say a few words about my own experience during the last 3 months and the FinTech Innovation Lab of Accenture. And when I thought about it, I remember that when I started Datarama, I thought that being an entrepreneur was really about coming back with a genius idea and convincing everybody that they couldn't live without it. Now, I think I understand that being an entrepreneur in today's environment is more than that. It's really creating product for you guys. It's creating product that solve your pain point, not necessarily what I have in my mind to start with. And the lab really provided this exceptional opportunity to interact with a lot of potential users and clients and understand what they need in order to produce the service. And the conversation that we had over the last 3 months with a lot of financial institutions, one area that really popped up as an area that needed good services or much better services is the ESG area, and especially in the private placement space. And that's already where we specialize. So we see it as a very good fit and a very good market opportunity for us. So the next thing for us essentially is to raise a Series A in order to support the development and the launch of a reliable and scalable ESG assessment tool. So I hope that there are some VCs in the room that might be interested in hearing more about this project. Please come and see me at the end. I'll be happy to talk to you about that. To conclude, if I want you to remember one thing about Datarama, really, after hearing my short speech, is that we're building the Google map of business intelligence. Why we're doing that? Essentially to help our clients navigate efficiently the most complex environment. So really the map, this Google map of business intelligence, is what is at the heart of Datarama. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Raphael. I look forward to see what you have in place with us related to your ESG assessment tool. I'm particularly excited to introduce our next startup, whose technology is tackling a global challenge related to client communications. I'll let Dima from LeapXpert to explain more to you. Welcome, Dima.
Good afternoon. My name is Dima. I'm the founder and CEO of LeapXpert. John, I'm not from Insured. Please wish me well. Okay, so let's start with a simple show of hands. Who among you are using personal messengers? WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, and so on. Hands up, all of you. Who are using the same messengers for work? Many of you. And that's exactly the problem. When you do that, there's lack of compliance, no data ownership. All the data generated by those conversations resides in your devices, in your client devices, and not with the company. You are not alone. It's a global problem. All across the world, almost on a monthly basis, people are being fired, company pays huge fines for compliance violations, and it's happening across the world. In LeapXpert, we have created a platform that finally allows company employees to communicate with their clients on their own terms. In simple English, clients can use whatever they want. Company employees are using our tools. We connect all the parties, ensuring rich communication, ensuring that all the data is stored with the company forever. LeapXpert is a super connector. We connect any consumer messaging app to any enterprise messaging app, effectively connecting billions of clients to hundreds of millions of company employees. We have a highly sophisticated platform, can be deployed in the cloud, on premises, you name it. On one hand, connects to any messaging provider. On the other hand, comes with many different convenient tools and exposes APIs for any kind of integration with a bank or any company. Now, this is how it works. In the next 2 minutes, please hang to your chairs. You will have a lot of things to see. So on the left, you can see a web portal used by company employees to communicate with the clients. And on the right is a mobile device simulating a client. And you can see RM, in this case, speaking with Helen using WhatsApp channel and sending a message. This message arrives to WhatsApp application installed on Helen's device. And Helen chooses to answer with a voice note. This voice note arrives immediately to RM who can answer. Now Helen switches to WeChat because why not? Maybe she traveled very fast. And using WeChat, she messages the same RM. You can see the message arriving to the same web portal over a different channel for the same customer, and RM chooses to answer. Now, you've seen that clients can use different applications, but why not RMs? So we went ahead, we implemented a strategy that we called Bring Your Own Messaging Platforms. Part of this strategy, we integrate into existing messaging apps like Microsoft Teams. So here RM switched to Microsoft Teams, and from within a team, continuous communication with the client. And the client still using WeChat. Now, we understand that modern employees are mobile, so we also developed a mobile applications for RM. So after client finishes messaging, you will see something else that will use the same device, but showing RM using a mobile application this time. So you can see RM launches our application and messages Helen over WeChat. And all the data is synchronized between his mobile device and his desktop device. Compliance. Every interaction between the company and the client is being recorded in this convenient audit log. You can see everything is here, can be exported, searchable, and so on. That's what we do in a nutshell. About the program. Without this amazing program, we would not be able to do 60 pitches to individuals and FIs, attend 19 follow-up meetings, hopefully something will come out of them, do 5 POCs with different FIs, have literally hundreds of people exposed to our product on all different levels, and having an opportunity to be mentored by amazing people from companies like Credit Suisse and Natixis here and many others. What are the insights we gained from the program and what we actually have done about it? So program and all the inputs from the program allows us to define our roadmaps for at least 6 months. In addition, we reduce the turnaround time of our POCs from few days to few minutes. We introduced our applications to App Store, so now you can all search, but you can use only if you pay, of course. We refined overall product use cases. For example, we have introduced a WeChat mini app integration in addition to official channels. We gain in-depth. We mapped the needs of insurance companies when it comes to compliance communication. Now we have a much better understanding. We have a profound understanding in all different regulation and compliance. We have created a framework to address questions of SFC and HKMA, and we dramatically improved our client onboarding. Sorry, what's next? So much more integrations. You could see a sneak before, integrations with Microsoft Teams, and we'll be integrating much more messengers on client side and company employee side. We are setting up a Singapore office as next Q1 to support our growing business there. We'll be announcing exciting partnerships with some of the industry major players. And the next Q, we'll be doing few of the first production rollouts with a couple of global banks. We're also expanding to a whole new vertical, so enterprise and SMEs. And we are doing so by implementing our own solution in a SaaS model to address the needs of SMEs. And this is how, it's a short teaser. It will be called Leap Cloud, with a shaming you and asking, what are you doing to ensure compliance of communication over public messengers? Thank you very much. Come and see us at the booth after the event. Thank you.
Documentation and the physical.
Thank you, Divya. I look forward to hearing more about your new product launch. We'll now take a 15-minute break, coming back at around 4:30. After the break, you'll hear the presentations of 2 more exciting startups. Thank you. of changes, and it is apparent that they are looking for customized and innovative solutions to meet the changing customer needs. The next presentation is from a Hong Kong-based startup who are trying to help insurance companies with this blockchain medical ecosystem. I will let William introduce MediConCen to you all. Welcome, William.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm William Zhiyan, CEO of MediConCen. We automate insurance claims using Hyperledger blockchain. MediConCen are founded by a team of actuaries, programmers, and dreamers in 2018. In less than 1 year's time, we have already launched with Blue Cross Insurance. This is the first in Asia blockchain medical ecosystem. And there are over 200,000 customers are using our service now. I think all of you are very familiar with this medical card. Have you ever wondered why most of the clinics you visit doesn't accept this card? And why in 21st century, you still need to sign on a piece of paper after using this card? Actually, there is a middleman called medical network in between this to facilitate the process. Each insurance company, they sign with different medical networks. And you can only visit the doctors that are within the networks employed by your insurer. This system fails as only 10% of doctors are covered. There is no dentist, no bone sector due to lack of trust. It's simply too easy to fake a signature on any piece of paper. The insurance company doctors get paid now. Check in, and you can get the product developed. And now I met friends from all industry and all background through this program. Today is the beginning of a new journey. We now have more clients than we can serve, and we will build a strong team to support our mission. We will set up a development office in mainland China to recruit more talent, especially the IT. And to build a truly international coverage, we will expand to China and also Singapore to construct a truly global medical ecosystem. We are in touch with the medical providers and the insurance company there already. And last but not least, we feel that insurance industry still lag behind other industry in terms of using data to reward your customer. We will make health credit your asset and have your insurance company truly reward you for staying healthy. That's all for our presentation. I will be in touch in the level kick session. Thank you.
Thank you, William. To help us conclude the startup presentations of the 2019 Demo Day, I would like to introduce Mellow, a Hong Kong-based startup who is targeting a completely different set of audience, children at age under 18. Please welcome Chester and Teresa to the stage to present their company, Mellow.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you are parents? How many of you worry that your kids will keep on asking you for money, like it just appears out of thin air? Well, you're not alone. We're here to solve this problem. We're Mellow and we build kids' financial responsibility. So before that, let's introduce the team. I'm Chester, the co-founder and CEO.
I'm Teresa, co-founder and CMO of Mellow.
And we are dedicated believers and eager to make social impact. We started this idea back in university, and along our journey, we have brought together a brilliant team and experienced advisors, including Graham, who is the CTO of Angel Hub, and Rainer, who is the founder of Baby Kingdom. And together, we are solving this problem. 90% adults actually still expect the parents for money support, may it be rent, may it be wedding, but these bad money habits are actually formed during childhood at an average age of 7 years old. But when we look at current market solutions for kids, we see that they are like app games, school workshops. They're non-practical, non-habitual, and non-educational. And so they're all outdated to solve this huge market void.
This is why we created Mellow, a free mobile app and payment solution targeting kids aged 6 to 18 as well as their parent. We digitalize pocket money so kids can build financial responsibility through saving, earning, spending, and budgeting. And it is all connected to real payment through a physical MasterCard debit card, usable globally, online, and offline. So let me walk you through the Mellow journey. First off, parents give their kids their pocket money. Then kids budget to decide how much they want to save and how much they want to spend. They can just save up or save towards a specific goal, like a teddy bear in a month, and we'll track their progress. Not only can they passively save, they can also actively earn by completing chores or challenges given by their parents. And they can earn different rewards. It can be in money terms, or it can be a hug from mom and dad. And then they learn how to spend mindfully as we track their expenses in real time and categorizes them. Parents can also interact by giving a thumbs up or thumbs down to their expense, teaching them how to differentiate needs and wants. And most importantly, parents are engaged throughout the entire process as they can track their kids' spending activities and behaviors. This is how we make money conversations easy for parents.
Our beta launched, acquired 1,700 users in just 3 months. And by the end of 2020, we aim to acquire 50,000 users through school partnerships, offline events, and digital marketing. So let's look at what our users think.
I become more confident and independent with my finance, and my parents trust me more when they see my improvements on Mellow.
It's fun, easy, colorful, and I use this all the time. I have more ways to earn more money. I love this.
我而家終於唔使顧住佢點樣用自己啲錢，但又知道佢點樣管理佢嘅財政。
Money is so fun with Mellow.
I like Mellow's ideas and mission. It is a safe environment for kids to learn, and it is something I wish I had when I was young.
Thank you.
So Mellow targets a $2 trillion Asia personal finance market, growing at a 45% year-on-year growth rate. We envision to be kids' first banking experience and go-to-money app in Asia.
Being a pocket money solution is just the beginning for Mellow. And we have so many exciting new developments coming up, and we ask you to be a part of our journey as a Mellow Fellow. In our future roadmap, we hope to provide more financial education courses, enable kids to have a social payment platform, onboard banks, FIs, and merchants into our ecosystem, and ultimately become a robo-advisor for parents. In less than a year, we have gained enormous support from various organizations and programs, and we are very grateful for that. We are Alibaba Jumpstarter's top 12 Hong Kong startup, top 3 in financial services. And we're the only Hong Kong fintech startup selected as TechCrunch top picks in Silicon Valley this year. For accelerator program, startup like Mellow.
From our dedicated 1 month of feedback and 2 weeks of creative sprint, we have improved our app to shorten the onboarding process from 3 days to just 30 seconds. Why fish for your kids when you can teach them how to fish? Build your kids' financial responsibility today and join us as a Mellow Fellow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chester and Teresa. I wish there was an app like Mellow to teach me personal finance when I was younger as well. So that concludes our startup presentations for today. I would like to thank all our 5 startups who presented for us. Next, while we set the stage, I would like to introduce you to the speakers of today's panel discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Anthony Chan, who is the Data and Analytic Lead for Accenture, Hong Kong, and China, together with Mr. Aisha Krishnan, Civic at Zurich, explore how data
right? Right? Do I need 100 data of it? What are you capturing and how are you capturing that, right? And then the third thing after that is, okay, I've got your...
There's different things that we're doing, but we're putting in different buckets. The easiest ones are the ones on the more incremental, less radical ones. And I think the challenge is more like that we get the balance with, internal rules, etc., and regulation.
And given I think we are all old enough to witness the traditional and the new way of doing businesses. Now, of course, for the new way of doing business is data-driven, right? So have you seen any new and interesting data, for example, it can be from internal that you have for many, many years, but you finally cracked that there was actually some insight within it? Or is there any outside data that you didn't know before your organization, but you managed to source it somehow and add it to your business? Was there anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, our business was founded, 7 years ago, and it was already mobile first at that time, right? So I think we were born in the sort of digital or data-driven age, so we're lucky, at least from that perspective. I mean, we started off our business doing online lending, so credit scoring, credit typical scorecards. What we did was we took the traditional model from a bank, because it's pretty established and pretty, it's pretty robust and we know what's going on. But what we did was we layered on alternative data. So what's alternative data, right? Let me give you one classic example. So from our historical sort of, past customers, we've worked out a couple of things, right? Which is people who apply for a loan between 2 to 6 a.m., compared to people who apply for a loan between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Which set do you think are better customers in general? The guys between 2 to 6 a.m. or the ones between 9 to 12? So what the evidence actually shows us is people between 2 to 6 a.m., it's not by definition they're bad customers, but they're 3 times more likely compared to the guys between 9 and 12 p.m. to be bad borrowers, to have delinquencies, basically. So there's statistical evidence on that from our track record. Well, that's not to say that if you apply between 2 and 6, we're automatically going to reject you, but that factors into our scorecard, right? Where we have, I don't know how many metrics right now in our scorecard. And that could be one of 1,000 different that way. But when you've collected all this data, the model to get...
Looking at the tech and then find use cases for it. But that's one that we want to do. The other one is we're having certain conversations with Google. From an insurance perspective, they have a lot of data and they don't give you any data that is not aggregated data. So we're looking at they know a lot of stuff. They know, how many people are in this space right now. So from a business interruption perspective, it's quite an interesting thing. We will be able to ensure the coffee shop down the street and see if they have a loss of income because we can see there are no customers for a month, for example. So we're looking into, that's one example. I think it's really interesting one and it's an interesting use case, especially because in our company, we look at business interruption pretty much from a corporate level, and this can bring us down to mid-market and SME. So I think it's also something that surprised me.
Yeah, I think that's all interesting. But if we look at it from a challenging angle, right? Because knowing too much data, again, it might not be a good thing because you can have ethical issue. The customer thinking, well, you are doing things that I didn't even thought I told anyone. But then because we are so data-driven that we see that there might be some challenges. But what do you see as a challenge from your organization for having diving too deep into data?
So there's a little bit of analysis paralysis, right? Because at what point in time is spending too much time in analyzing the data, the incremental value not justified, right? I go by an 80-20 rule, right? So if your incremental uplift is, 1% of accuracy, is that enough for you to justify putting on a team of X people to get there, right? So I think that's a little bit more of a business decision thing that I think most people can relate to. But I think the really important point is what you just talked about in terms of the ethical side of it. As we think about data privacy, it's not just what's governed by the PDPO, which is very clear in Hong Kong, which is very helpful. We also operate in mainland China and Indonesia, where it's not as well defined as the PDPO in Hong Kong. But then there's always the ethical question of, should I collect 100 data points? Or is there a way that I can only extract a summary version to get to the outcome of what I wanted to do with the 50 data points? And I think that's what we've done internally, and we have an edge computing patent, which basically, instead of extracting the 100 data points, I've analyzed the 50 data points, and I'm just sending out the output onto our system. So the 100 data points actually never leave your system. So I think technologies like that will continue to evolve by us and all the players in the market, where that gives the customer, better assurance of data privacy and respecting them, no data loss, etc. And so, and really it's the ethical thing. But then, to Ashok's point, is with more data, there's more possibilities in terms of what you could possibly dream up, right? So I think that is also a point of dilemma sometimes, right? You can't find the use case sometimes until you've played around in the sandpit for a little bit, and then kind of built something magical and came out from that. So I think that's a little bit of a challenge in terms of, what's too much and what's too little.
Ashok, any challenges you foresee?
No, I think the ethical question, absolutely. I think that's a huge, huge question for all of us. In addition to that, probably I'll add a couple of more simpler challenges. The first one is, and especially for the audience here who are from large corporates, you would find it, we sometimes have a lot of solutions looking for problems to solve, right? Oh, we need to do blockchain. We need to do AI. For what? And believe it or not, I'm the first person to say no to a lot of potential AI use cases, because I'm like, the minute somebody say, what is the business value? I don't know, but it's supposed to be cool, right? So
we're gonna try it first. Yeah?
So I think that's the first challenge. The second one is the really, really boring stuff for all the data scientists. It's the basic data quality and the management and the governance of data. Let's say the dirty laundry to be cleaned before you can do the fun stuff, right? So I think those are two challenges which in some ways are underappreciated, and it's not fun to talk about, right?
What's important?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I would add in addition to what you guys said is, compliance. Some issues. Sometimes we have these discussions and spend a lot of time just to make sure that everyone knows what we're trying to do. we often, in our organization, believe that compliance wants to get the gold medal of compliance, and that doesn't exist. So it's trying to go and say, what is the frame? What's the freedom that we have to work, up to a certain level and do something with data? Capabilities. Some countries we have experience and good people, a lot more organized in terms of data governance, and others we don't. So we're looking at how do we breed.
Or organized. I mean, yes, is it going to be just more data, or is it going to be first party data, capturing more of those? Because I think right now we're all capturing data from different perspectives. But there are a lot of information that we can still capture. But sometimes it's not necessarily the customer inputting themselves, but we're actually tracking, for example, the customer never told us the battery level of their cell phone, right? But we're actually using that because we have captured it somehow. But how do you see the trend going forward would be like?
What's Accenture think about this?
Good question. We believe that in Hong Kong, at this moment in time, I think this is still quite new even to big organizations, right? They know they have a lot of data, but when I go talk to Ashok and different teams, it's that we have got a lot of internal data that we haven't really unlocked, right? From the different insight. This might be different from virtual bank or the new startup because they're starting really just from scratch, right? But we've got legacy system which got tons of data sitting on one side. We've got different teams which uses different data. For example, one example that we just recently seen, a digital team will hold some set of the data, right? But the underwriting team will hold another set of data. And another team, the product team will hold another product data, right? So I think this goes back to your point. How do we link up all of these information somehow? Because actually they have it in the organization. We don't have to go out and purchase and find it. So our point of view is to help our clients to leverage what they have, right? And then explore any new data that's available outside, and then apply just smarter analytics on top. So that's our point of view.
So I think you very rightly point out that a larger organization has very different considerations compared to newer guys out there or startups or even what a virtual bank is facing right now. Like, we don't have an existing vault of data to unlock or to unleash, right? So it's more about capturing new rather than harvesting and trying to monetize or make use of the old. So from our perspective, I think there are a lot of challenges, but there's actually a lot to look forward to, whether it's an open banking regime, an open data regime, which they're implementing in Australia, so it's going to be broader than just bank information. It's going to be energy, utilities, everything, you name it. It's going to be, quote unquote, made available with consent, and it's legislature by the government. That will create more of a level playing field for everyone, including smaller TSPs, third-party service providers, fintechs, tech companies, etc. So I think that gives a lot of space for creativity. We always say that the beauty of smaller organizations sometimes is flexibility, creativity, the nimbleness. I was at a hackathon on the weekend, and literally what I said to the participants was, go be crazy, think big, go wild, think of something that's like completely gonna shock everyone else, right? Because I think they have that freedom much more so to be able to do that. And so I don't know what the future, I can give you a very corporate answer because I have that, but I think what I'm most excited about is actually what we don't know yet. Because that is the possibility, and that is the part that is most exciting by us as a community being more collaborative. So I think open banking should happen. Banks should share, because that is for the betterment of the whole of the community and society and Hong Kong and everything. But I can understand why an incumbent may be less willing to do so. Yep. So I think it's about how can we get everyone aligned on the same page and realize that the ultimate objective is for the betterment of everyone. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't think we're there yet, but hopefully that will happen.
Yep, agree. Sure.
So I think in terms of, future gazing is always a futile exercise, right? destined to fail 99% of time. But having said that, something which we would love to drive forward is genuine understanding of the value of data and creating a proper value share mechanism. So, for example, today it's almost some kind of a race to say, oh, every corporate wants to acquire as much data as we can, without even knowing whether it's useful, can be useful, none of that. But I think the faster we get to a point where, I don't want to use the word customers because like I'm a customer of, let's say, banks, and you are a customer of insurance. So we are all part of this ecosystem. We need to be clear about, okay, I'm willing to share this data because I'm going to gain this value. So I can mentally attribute this is the value of this data. And I think the faster we kind of get to that point as a society, the better it is for us, because I don't think there's any debate on whether data is useful or not. It's more a question of what is the right value share, and if the value share is not equitable, it won't be sustainable.
I would say, like for Zurich, my prediction for the next 12 months, that's as far as I can go. We will still continue doing like the incremental piece, and leveraging being the fact that we're a composite insurer, and see like how do we understand about the customer, doesn't matter if it's life, general insurance, next best offer, all these kind of things, which is the incremental, and fixing the basics, infrastructure, the issues that we still have. On the other side, we will still look into new concepts and see how we can bring alternative data into our models to improve customer experience, products, etc. On the personal level, one thing I would like to happen is the pod concept. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, which is the personal online data storage, which is something really cool where a person will own their own data and share with corporations as they want to. I would love that to happen. This morning I was speaking with an Hong Kong company, Hong Kong startup. They do personalized skincare. You basically scan your face and they tell you what kind of moisturizer you should use. I guess they approached me because they probably see I'll need some skincare. But what I find it interesting is imagining trying to combine that with like DNA data, and then if you're allowed, like you own your data and you pass that data to a skincare company and they are like personalized. So bringing this extra personalization would be something really cool, as long as the person takes control of their data and not multiple organizations.
It's actually, I was talking to one friend back in the UK, right? So I think they were having some ideas of saying that, well, we generate a lot of data, each of us here, every single day, right? I mean, we're talking about consent, we're talking about privacy, but I think we go back to the first question, is what's in it for me as a consumer, right? So they were thinking about business models saying that, well, if we can put a dollar value on the amount of data that I share, and I can decide who I want to share that to, because that is related to loyalty, right? I might favor one bank, right? So I might only want to share it with HSBC, given that HSBC might be giving something back to me. But I think going back to all your points is saying that, well, can we put a value on data, right? And obviously, if I'm willing to share that data, there's something that I have to give it back. And if I'm making money out of it, then might be something that's worth doing so.
Can I just make a comment? Hong Kong people are so practical. Everything is tied to money. I need to benefit from it, This is totally not the case when you look at the UK and Europe and the US and different demographics. Like, it's really interesting how we're pigeonholing Hong Kong people to be like that. And I don't think it's so much that case, and I'm gonna prove you wrong somehow. Not right now, but I'll work on it, because I don't, I think we've pigeonholed people into that box, and I don't think that's the case. So I'll work on it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is very insightful, right? And I guess the audience might have some questions that they would like to ask, but I think let's open the floor for quick questions.
Hello, thank you for your speech. Most of the topic you raise is around data of people for retail. How do you see the use of data in financial institutions with wholesale customer, as opposed to retail customer?
So, thank you for the question. Actually, globally speaking, probably about half of our customers are actually wholesale or commercial, as we call it. And so in terms of the way we look at it from a business standpoint, it's equally important. The commercial customer base is less tricky compared to retail, because with the commercial customers, the arguments are very straightforward and business language, right? To say, I'm going to use this data for this purpose, agreed, not agreed, and there's a clear agreement which says what you can do or cannot do. Whereas with retail, it's a little bit more grayer, again, depending on which jurisdiction we are operating in. But in terms of the techniques you use and all of that, it's pretty much the same.
Any other questions?
Hi, whoa, that was strong. I'm Emmanuel, I work in a French bank called Natixis. As you know, Europe has invented this new concept called GDPR or RGPD or whatever the letters you're putting there. And I wanted to know, since you guys are based in Hong Kong, but from Zurich or AXA, which are European companies, how would you rate the difficulty of GDPR versus the various data privacy policies here in Asia?
That's a difficult question. I would say that, fundamentally, so like for us, we're only allowed to collect data for a purpose, for a specific purpose, like it or not. So when we look at GDPR, we know that GDPR is coming to Hong Kong and will spread out to the rest of Asia. So we're ready for that, and I would say we're probably almost compliant with GDPR and across all our business units in Asia Pacific. So we just see that trend coming to Asia, and we'll just have to deal with that.
Any other question from?
Hi, good evening, folks. My name is Avinash. I'm one of the cohorts for the FILAP 2019. I have a selfish question here, right? So when you speak about data, just to follow up on Anthony, where he put across that different teams also hold different data, so the enterprise doesn't have a complete view of the data. But having said that, a lot of enterprises do use third-party tools and products to manage these data, right? Now, in that context, how many of third-party data is still owned by enterprises? And can you really consider owning that to be able to put that back to your systems for your data scientists or analytic teams to use it and leverage that to your enterprise's benefits? So what are your takes, and then some insights that could help companies like us?
I think there's a bifurcation between the right to own and the right to use, right? So whilst you don't own data, you could purchase it from somewhere else, you can still use that. And after using that as the first derivative, you can still take the insights there, which may or may not be useful, and then own those insights. So your IP is the insights, right? Not the raw data itself. So from that, so if I purchase data from someone, I don't own it, but I can use it, right? And I've derived some sort of insights that come out of that, filtered down version of some sort, but it's relevant insights that is useful for me. Those insights are now my new data points that I own as IP, and then I can blend them into everything else that I do. So at the end of the day, it comes back to, is it a numbers game because you want everything, or do you only want the clean and the good and the useful data, which I referred to before? Because it's about the quality and not just the quantity. So that's my simplistic way of addressing this, because I know this is a very real issue. But we're obviously not as complex as these two gentlemen here in terms of their organizations.
Ashok, anything that you want to add? Yep. Michelle? No?
No.
Okay, thank you. And I think we had one question there.
Thank you. I'm William Hui from Manulife. I believe that the fundamentals of data are doesn't change that much. Data is data. But every year, IT vendors invent new technology, essentially making the same soup but with a different pot, right? What is your Northern Star in, holding yourself down and get to the knuckle to do the real data things and stay away from the market noise? Because the loneliness of doing something against the grain can be challenging.
Good question. So when it comes to data, again, going back to the concept of like what we do to improve our business, that's probably what you refer of the fundamentals of data. We just don't want to be cynical, because it's easy to fall into that trap of just go and say, oh, everything else doesn't matter. It's just bells and whistles. So we need to scan the market and keep an eye on it. So the example I was giving before about measuring your fat to muscle or muscle to fat ratio is one example that you can go and say, like, you get to a point where it can be so complicated that it's better if you ask the BMI of a person, and then you know that maybe with 80% it will be true, right? So we try to do these checks and balances, but we just don't want to dismiss what technology can bring us, because we may be missing something important. But I think the fundamentals of insurance. We talk a lot about personalization. I'm sure it's the same with Manulife. It will still be a large numbers game. There'll be personalization probably in services, but the fundamentals in terms of data will be there. It's just how much can we expand to something else that will bring additional insight about a person, about an object, about a business, etc. So, yeah.
Probably add to that. Sometimes noise is noise, and we need to understand how to split out the noise. So just give a simple example. Maybe 15 years back, somebody would have been called a database analyst. 10 years back, the same person was an email marketing analyst. 5-6 years back, they were, like a CRM expert or a CRM analyst. And today, the same guy is a data scientist. It's exactly the same person, right? It's about kind of trying to shift out from the noise. And to us, it's very, very simple. Regardless of what technology you use or regardless of what you call yourself, number one, are you doing something where you can increase the business sales? Can you take cost out? Can you improve your customer's experience? I mean, if we can tick one of these boxes, ideally all 3 boxes, you're on the right track. If not, then it doesn't matter to me which rocket you're flying on. It doesn't work for us, right?
Thank you. I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for all your time. And I guess if you've got any questions, then you can ask us after. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very enlightening conversation. I would like to thank Zhao, Ashok, Jessica, and Anthony for helping us conclude the 2019 FinTech Innovation Lab Asia-Pacific Demo Day. If I may ask you all to stay on stage while we invite everyone who has supported us to make today a success to come on stage to take a photo. May I invite Ravi, Engineer Eric Chan, Chief Public Mission Officer of Cyberport, all our 8 startups, Invest Hong Kong, our participating financial institutions, our independent mentors, and the Accenture program team, as well as our Accenture SMEs and mentors to come on stage to take a picture, please. We have to move closer. This is not a goodbye yet for everyone. Please, I welcome you to stay and visit our startup booths, which is at the back of the room. There will also be refreshments, so please stay, learn more about our startups, their companies, their proposition. Thank you to all our speakers for sharing their remarks, and to our distinguished guests, partners, colleagues, and media friends for coming today. I will see you all again in 2020. All our startups, can we come on stage to take a picture, please?
Dima, can we have you on stage, please? Stop selling. Sam is here.